Ladies and gentlemen, family, friends, and all those who are walking through something today, I came here to tell you one thing. Your prison does not define you. Your pain is not your identity, and your past does not dictate your destiny. See, we all find ourselves in a prison at some point. It may not have bars of steel, but it locks us in just the same. A prison of fear, a prison of regret, a prison of mistakes, of shame, of disappointment, a prison built by the hands of others or one we built with our own. And if we're not careful, we start believing that the prison is permanent. Prisons are not always physical. Some of the strongest, most unbreakable prisons are the ones we cannot see, the prisons built in the mind, the heart, and the soul. These prisons have no steel bars, no concrete walls, no iron doors that clang shut, but they are just as confining, just as restricting, and just as suffocating. They hold us captive in fear, in regret, in self-doubt, in shame, in pain. They are the prisons that whisper to us in the middle of the night, telling us we are not enough, that we have made too many mistakes, that our past is too broken to ever build a future. These are the prisons that convince us that because we fell, we are finished. That because we struggled, we are stuck. That because we lost something, we will never win again. Some people wake up every day behind the invisible bars of their past, carrying guilt and shame for things they cannot change. They replay old failures in their minds, punishing themselves over and over again for things that God has already forgiven, for things that no longer matter, for things that were meant to be lessons, not life sentences. Others find themselves trapped by fear, fear of stepping out, fear of trying again, fear of believing in themselves after life has knocked them down too many times. They sit in a prison cell of their own making, afraid to walk through the door that has already been unlocked. And then there are those who are prisoners of circumstances. Maybe life didn't turn out the way they thought it would. Maybe betrayal, loss, heartbreak, or unexpected tragedy left them feeling trapped in a place they never planned to be. They look around at the walls of disappointment and believe that they are stuck there forever, that no escape exists, that no new chapter can be written beyond the pain they are currently in. But the truth is, these prisons are not permanent. They are not our final destination. The walls we think are surrounding us are often just illusions created by our own beliefs. The doors we think are locked are often wide open, waiting for us to take the first step toward freedom. No matter what kind of prison we find ourselves in, we must remember that we were never meant to live confined. Our purpose was never meant to be locked away. The key is in our hands, and it is up to us to use it. Prison does not mean the end of purpose. Too often we mistake confinement for cancellation, believing that because we are in a difficult place, our purpose has expired. But history, faith, and experience all prove otherwise. Some of the greatest breakthroughs, the most powerful testimonies, and the deepest transformations come from places of struggle. The prison is not the graveyard of your destiny. It is the place where your purpose is refined, strengthened, and revealed. Think about Joseph. He had a dream, a vision of his future, but before he ever saw it come to pass, he was betrayed, thrown into a pit, sold into slavery, and then falsely accused and locked away in prison. If he had looked at his circumstances alone, he might have thought his purpose was over. But what Joseph didn't see in the moment was that his prison was actually a stepping stone. It was in that place of confinement that he developed wisdom, endurance, and leadership, preparing him for the moment he would rise to power and fulfill the very dream he thought had died. The same was true for Paul. He had a mission, a calling to spread truth and light to the world, yet many of his most profound letters, the ones that are still transforming lives today, were written from a prison cell. It was in captivity that his purpose became unstoppable. The chains on his hands did not stop the words from flowing. The walls around him did not block his influence. His prison did not destroy his purpose, it amplified it. There are so many who sit in the prisons of life and assume that because they are struggling, because they are hurting, because they are in a place they never wanted to be, their purpose must be dead. They think that because they lost the job, the relationship, the opportunity, or the dream, that they have lost their reason for being. But what they don't realize is that the purpose they carry is not tied to their circumstances. It is not limited by location. It is not dictated by what they have or don't have. Purpose is bigger than prison. When we understand this, everything changes. We stop seeing our hardships as the end of the road and start seeing them as part of the process. We stop believing that setbacks mean we have been forgotten and start recognizing them as moments of preparation. The prison is not here to kill your purpose. It is here to prove that no matter what happens, your purpose cannot be taken from you. Preparation happens in the prison. What feels like confinement is often the very place where character is shaped, faith is tested, and strength is built. It is in the darkest places that we learn the most valuable lessons, and it is in the waiting season that we are equipped for what comes next. When people find themselves in a prison, whether it's a season of struggle, failure, or disappointment, the natural reaction is to ask, why me? But a better question is, what is this preparing me for? Because nothing is wasted. Every challenge, every tear, every difficult moment has the potential to shape us for something greater. Consider David before he became king. He had a calling on his life. But before he ever sat on the throne, he spent years hiding in caves, running for his life and experiencing isolation and betrayal. It would have been easy for him to believe that he was stuck, that the promise over his life would never come to pass. But those years in the wilderness were not wasted. They were his training ground. The battles he fought in the dark prepared him for the victories he would win in the light. Without the caves, he wouldn't have had the wisdom to rule. Without the hardship, he wouldn't have had the heart to lead. Many people assume that if they are in a difficult place, it means they are being punished. But what if the struggle is not punishment, but preparation? What if the prison is not a sign of failure, but a sign that something greater is on the way? Some of the strongest people are not those who had an easy journey, but those who had to fight, endure, and push through obstacles to reach their purpose. Strength is not built in comfort, it is built in challenge. Wisdom is not gained through ease, it is gained through experience. When we look at the prison as preparation, our entire perspective shifts. We stop seeing it as something that is against us and start recognizing it as something that is working for us. We realize that the pain is producing perseverance, that the delay is developing discipline, and that the struggle is shaping us into the person we need to be for what is coming next. Growth does not happen in the places where everything is easy. It happens in the moments where we are stretched, tested, and refined. The prison may feel like a setback, but in reality, it is setting the stage for something far greater than we could ever imagine. Failure and pain do not cancel destiny. Too many people believe that once they have fallen, once they have made a mistake, once they have suffered loss, their future is over. They assume that because they have experienced failure, they are failures. That because they have been broken, they are beyond repair. But the truth is, destiny is not fragile. Purpose does not break under pressure. What is meant for you cannot be erased just because you have gone through hardship. Some of the greatest stories in history are not of people who never failed, but of those who refused to let failure define them. Think about Peter, one of the closest disciples to Jesus. He had passion, he had purpose. But when the moment of pressure came, he denied the very person he swore to stand by. He made a mistake that could have left him drowning in shame. He could have walked away and convinced himself that his purpose was over. But failure was not his final chapter. He was restored, strengthened, and became a foundational leader whose impact is still felt today. His failure did not cancel his calling, it refined it. Pain also has a way of making people think they have no future. A broken heart, a lost opportunity, a deep wound. These things hurt so much that they can make us feel like we will never be whole again. But pain is not permanent. What we go through does not define who we are. Many people allow pain to trap them, to convince them that they are unworthy, that they will never recover, that their best days are behind them. But pain, when processed correctly, can become the fuel for purpose. Some of the most powerful leaders, the strongest warriors, and the most influential voices are those who turn their deepest wounds into a source of wisdom. Those who transform their pain into a platform to help others. Destiny is not dependent on perfection. It does not require a flawless record. It does not get erased because of a bad decision, a painful loss, or a moment of weakness. The only way destiny can be canceled is if we give up on it ourselves. But as long as we are breathing, as long as we are willing to keep moving forward, nothing we have been through can disqualify us from what is still ahead. What was broken can be rebuilt. What was lost can be restored. What seemed like the end can become the very thing that pushes us into a greater purpose than we ever imagined. Your condition does not define your calling. Too often people look at where they are right now and assume that it is all they will ever be. They measure their future by their current struggle, believing that because they are in a tough place, they are disqualified from something greater. But circumstances are temporary and calling is eternal. Just because today looks dark does not mean tomorrow will not be filled with light. Just because things are not working in your favor right now does not mean your purpose is not still alive. There are so many examples of people who found themselves in difficult conditions but refused to let those conditions define them. Consider Moses, a man who was born into a broken system, placed in a river as an infant to escape death, raised in a palace only to run away in fear after making a mistake. He found himself in the wilderness tending sheep, far from the life he once knew, far from the idea of leadership, far from anything that looked like purpose. If Moses had believed that his condition defined him, he would have stayed in that wilderness forever. But purpose was calling him even in his lowest place. His past did not disqualify him. His failures did not cancel him. His mistakes did not erase the plan for his life. And when the moment came, he stepped into his calling, not because of where he was, but because of who he was always meant to be. Many people struggle with this same mindset today. They look at their financial struggle, their broken relationships, their past decisions, and they tell themselves that they are not worthy of more. They believe that because they have been rejected, they are not valuable, that because they have been overlooked, they are invisible, that because they are struggling, they have no future. But none of these things are true. A moment of hardship is not a lifetime sentence. A season of difficulty is not the definition of a destiny. Purpose does not disappear just because the road gets rough. Your calling is still calling even when life feels uncertain. It does not matter what condition you find yourself in right now. The story is not over. What is inside of you is greater than what is around you. Your future is not limited by your past, and your condition does not determine your conclusion. You were created for something greater than what you see today, and no current circumstance can change that truth. Purpose is greater than any prison. No matter how strong the chains, no matter how high the walls, no matter how long the struggle, purpose cannot be contained. It cannot be locked away, silenced, or erased. When something is truly meant for you, no prison, physical, emotional, or mental, can keep you from it. Too often, people believe that because they are in a difficult place, they have lost their calling. They think that because they are struggling, they are no longer valuable. But purpose does not vanish just because the circumstances are hard. Purpose remains, waiting for the moment when you realize that nothing can take it from you. History is filled with examples of people who were placed in prisons, both literal and figurative, yet their purpose only grew stronger. Nelson Mandela was locked behind bars for 27 years, yet his purpose was never confined. It was in that prison that he became the leader who would later change a nation. Martin Luther King Jr. wrote some of his most powerful words from behind bars, proving that even in confinement, purpose finds a way to rise. These men understood that purpose is not dictated by location, opposition, or obstacles. It exists beyond circumstances. It lives beyond struggle. Many people today find themselves in invisible prisons, prisons of fear, of doubt, of regret. They feel trapped by past mistakes, bound by insecurities, locked away by pain. They assume that because they feel stuck, they are forgotten. But what if the very thing that feels like a prison is actually the place where purpose is being refined? What if the struggle is not meant to destroy but to strengthen? What if the prison is not the end but the beginning of something greater? The greatest mistake a person can make is believing that because they are struggling, they have no future. The prison may feel real, the weight may be heavy, but the truth is that nothing has the power to stop what has already been destined for you. The walls around you may seem high, but purpose is higher. The chains may feel strong, but purpose is stronger. No amount of rejection, failure, or opposition can take away what has already been placed inside of you. Purpose is not fragile. It does not break under pressure. It does not disappear when life gets difficult. The prison may look like a place of limitation, but in reality, it is the place where strength is built, where faith is tested, where resilience is formed. And when the moment comes, nothing will be able to hold back what has always been meant for you.